I thank His Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj. He's always very, very kind, inviting and welcoming. And really, really happy to be here. Looking forward to also hearing from His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu and spending time with all of you. Out of all the retreats, one reason why I like this retreat the most is they give me the morning class. So I do my little bit of service in the morning, and then by 9 o'clock I'm free. Then I can just hear, then I can just associate and relish. So very, very happy to be with you. And we just came from Sri Vrindavan Dham. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai! So here I see today we're celebrating Holi, and we definitely got holified in Sri Vrindavan Dham. It's a dangerous place to be. Actually, I was traveling only with 3 sets of like dhoti kurtas. So like, I was very, very cautious, like I was in Vrindavan. They have a different day of Holi and all that. So Nandagram is one day, Varshana, Vrindavan. So I was strategically, of course, we love Holi, but I also need a clean set of saffron as well. So I was moving around. Actually, I was doing very well. Actually, I didn't get colored. And then we went to Jaipur. And then I was in front of Radha Gopinath. I dodged everything, and then I came in front of Radha Gopinath. So I was meditating on Shriman Rasa Rasadambhi. And then I was looking at Gopinath's watch, because as you know, in Jaipur, even Gopinath has a watch. And then right there, the place which I thought was the safest place, bang! I just got like all this powder over me. And then I thought, Gopinath has decided now is the time. And then it was a full-scale holy carnage. And we had a big party, and it was very, very blissful. But as I was covered in colors, of course we're having the festival today, I was realizing how colors are such an important part of spiritual life. What is life without color? Where is the rasa without color? A devotee is an artist, and an artist utilizes color. Color represents diversity. How we're all different. We all have our unique approaches, our unique personalities, our unique talents and abilities, and how all of those colors of diversity come together to make a beautiful offering. Colors also represent freshness. It's amazing when you go to Vrindavan and you see these powders they have. The colors are so fresh. They're like striking. And maybe our life must be full of color. There must be freshness. There must be enthusiasm. There must be hunger. We must wake up with a hunger for life, looking forward at the day ahead and what opportunities we have. Color represents creativity. To know that we can always paint new scenery in our spiritual life. Sometimes we look at our life and we feel like we're maybe somewhat imprisoned, we're blocked, there's no way forward. But colors remind us that on the scenery, the canvas of life, we can always paint new pictures, create new opportunities, find new doors that we can open which lead us to new worlds. And so while I was there in Radha Gopinath temple, being well and truly bombarded with powder, I was remembering all of this, how life is so much about color. So it was very nice. And then one Brajabasi told me, 6 things are there in Vrindavan that you cannot get anywhere else, so be happy. He said, Dan, Man, Holi, Chori, Ras, Vilas. Because these 6 things only happen in Vrindavan Dham. Dan, Krishna becomes a tax collector and he starts demanding payments. Man, Krishna acts in such a sometimes seemingly indifferent and outrageous, extraordinary way that he arouses transcendental anger within his devotees. Holi, Krishna plays with colors. Jori, Krishna steals. Ras, Krishna dances, the king of dancers, Nataraj. And Vilas, just playing, purposeless play. The English saying, just for fun. That comes from Leela. That's what Vilas is, Leela. Just for fun, Krishna plays with no purpose, purposeless play. So this is Vrindavan, and this is our cherished aspiration. And we're so fortunate on this retreat. We have His Holiness Sachinanda Maharaj, His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu, who are taking us deep into the ocean. There are many retreats around the world, but this is definitely a unique retreat because it gives us the opportunity to really go deeper. My role in that will be very small. In the Gita, there's 2 repeated verses. One is the one where Krishna tells us to always think about him. And the other repeated verse in the Gita is that one should do their own duty, even imperfectly, then try to do another's duty. So I will not do the duty of His Holiness Sachinanda Maharaj and His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu. They will take us to Vrindavan. I will do my duty, maybe imperfectly, which is maybe to give some practical wisdom on the journey to Vrindavan as we navigate the world, as we navigate the complexity, and as we allow our hearts to be open to be captured by Krishna. So, does that sound okay? Is that okay? Okay, thank you so much. Be patient with me. I am a small sparrow in the ocean of the great assembly here. So today I thought we could speak about transformation, and specifically 7 triggers of transformation. I know Sachinanda Maharaj, he loves this topic very, very much, and this topic is extremely important because we all have to feel... can I just get this here? Is possible? Yeah. We have to, you can keep this here and then I can... We all have to feel like there's some development, some movement, some kind of progress in our spiritual life, and sometimes it's not always easy because there are doubts. How many of you, while doing arti, have ever got burned by the matchstick that you were using to light the ghee? Thank you. I feel your pain. It happened to me many times. In the world today, self-development has become such a huge thing because people want to transform, people want to change, people want to become the best version of themselves. But sometimes there's a whole movement against self-development because they call it toxic self-development. Because what people do, self-development speakers, they give us a bright idea of what our lives could be, should be. But then in reality, we can never really do it. We can't really change. We can't really transform. They say self-development sometimes is like a matchstick. You strike it, and in the beginning, there's a huge light, huge hope, huge intensity. But then gradually that fire starts dwindling down. And if you keep your hand on the matchstick, that fire may even burn you. And it ends up actually becoming very, very uncomfortable. The very things that you are aspiring for, as you see your hope dwindling down, it burns you, it pains you. And then eventually that whole thing goes away and people are left feeling even more unhappy. But sometimes, did you know that even in Krishna consciousness, people can feel like this? We can have doubts. Am I ever going to make it? Am I making it? Am I moving forward? I'm going to show you something live. I try to keep my finger on the pulse and try to understand what devotees are going through, what devotees are experiencing. So oftentimes when I'm also speaking to you in the Prasadam hall, I'm also doing research. I won't quote you, don't worry. But just so you know. But a few weeks ago, someone sent an email in which they revealed their heart. Now this devotee, I'm going to show you what he wrote. He wrote it on a public forum. I took his permission before putting it here. He's a very nice devotee, very committed devotee. And when you read it, I don't want you to think at all that he's a bad devotee. He's actually a wonderful devotee. Very, very sincere. But he's also the kind of devotee who's just very straightforward. Have you ever met a straightforward devotee? Everyone's like, no, I've never met straight. You have met devotees who just speak their mind. And oftentimes what they speak is what we call in English, they may identify the elephant in the room. Sometimes there's an elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about or address, but then someone just comes out and says it, when actually everyone is understanding there's a problem here. So I'm going to show you his email, and I want to see whether anything he writes in this email resonates with you. And I want you to also feel, question yourself that if it doesn't, how would you respond? How would you answer? How would you pacify or inspire this devotee? So would you like to see what he wrote on a public forum? Please don't curse him. He's a very nice person and he is practicing Krishna consciousness probably more seriously than me. So, but this is what he wrote. Someone will be upset with this. When an email starts like that, you can start getting scared, you know. Someone will be upset with this or disagree. You may respond to this or may think it's pointless to comment or not do anything. Maybe that's a sign that deep down you agree with this. Anyway, I always spoke what's in my mind. At this point, yeah, you nearly fell off your chair, I can see that. Okay, continue on. Yes. Scriptures, liberated persons may say, this process is not so difficult. You only have to control your mind, control your senses, urges, anger, etc. But the liberated persons, the great souls, don't need to struggle in this bhakti process. They are not under the three modes, under the three kleshas. There's no struggle for them. You can see where this is going. But most of the devotees are just struggling in this process, a process that is supposedly easy. Now this is the point, and I want you to think about this. Personally, I don't see any remarkable change in the character of any practitioner since I joined. He's a nice person. He's a nice person. He's just very straightforward. One is like this or like that always. Nice or mellow, impulsive or humble or whatever. Same as years and years back. Nobody really changes that much. Now I want you to think about this. We may see a humble devotee. His point is that that person already had a personality where they were humble. And by coming to Krishna consciousness, maybe it, improved a little bit. Basically, you are who you are. His point is that I don't see that anyone has really changed that much. The basic person who they were, they still are. And maybe some refinement has taken place in Krishna consciousness, but they haven't really changed that much. That's what he's saying. So, this wishful thinking may sound nice, promising. A young person can be enthusiastic about anything, looking into a bright future. But so far, I didn't see this work. after a few decades, they will realize that the miracle didn't happen to him yet. That last bit was thank you. Thank you. That saved the day, you know. The ... yet. Even there's some hope in him. And clearly there is hope. Because after he wrote this email, the next day he was up at 3 o'clock chanting his rounds, doing his service and pushing on. Do you resonate with some of what he's saying? Yes. Yes, I think so. If we are honest, we would like to go out and say, Susukam kartum avyayam, it's very easy, it's a joyful process, we're changing, we're going, we're on our way, we're going back to Godhead. Lord Chaitanya's moon is rising, it's not at all surprising, we're telling everyone on the street, we're telling everyone we meet that we're going. Oh, it's a beautiful song. I love it. I love that song. When I hear that song, actually, it makes, I don't know what it is, it makes me very emotional, that song. I don't know, some connection is there with that song. But it's not an easy process. Even Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Durgame patimen dhasya skalat pada gater muhu svakripa yastida nena shantashantva valambanam. He says, my path is very difficult. I'm slipping again and again. But the stick of the mercy of the Vaishnavas is holding me up. So there's some questions over transformation. And some doubts are there. This is a famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita that Srila Prabhupada often quoted. The ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. For the doubting soul there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. It's very beautiful. In Chaitanya Charitamrita we read, Krishna Tulya Bhagavata Vibhu Sarva Shrai Prati Shloke Prati Akshare Nana Artha Gai. That in every single verse there are many, many meanings. What to speak of every verse in every syllable, Prati Akshare. So Srila Prabhupada, in his translation of this verse, what he's done is he's made the ignorant, faithless, and those who doubt into basically one person. But if you read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this, he gives an extra illumination on it. He says that actually there's somewhat of a gradation here. He says the lowest is the ignorant person, Agya, one who doesn't know anything about Bhakti Tattva or the truths of spiritual life. One who basically eat, drink, be merry, enjoy and knows nothing more than that. Then he says higher than the Agya is the faithless person. That's the person who knows about spiritual life, knows about bhakti, knows about the beautiful opportunity that is there, but they don't have the faith to practice. Yeah. And then he says higher than that is the samsaya, or the one who is the doubter. And that's the person who knows they're not ignorant and they're not faithless because they're practicing Krishna consciousness, but while practicing Krishna consciousness, they're filled with doubts. They doubt themselves. They doubt the process, they doubt the devotees, sometimes they doubt Krishna. Constantly bombarded by doubts. So I think all of us in this room would probably come, or not all of us, sorry, that's not the right thing to say. If we were to be one of these categories, any of you in this room, then it would be the doubter, isn't it? Right. Now the interesting thing that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also tells us in this commentary is that of the three, do you know who is the worst? Who is specifically criticized by Krishna? Doubter. Why? It would seem the doubter is better, further along the path. Why is the doubter the worst? Because they know. He's wasted the opportunity. So close but yet so far. Yes. Actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, you know how he determines in this verse Krishna is specifically criticizing the doubter more than the others? Can you see something in this verse? There's one thing which shows Krishna has particular disdain for the doubter. Because this verse, this word comes twice. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says Krishna is specifically criticizing one who is a doubter. So this, doubting, Krishna says, Nayam loko stina paro nasukam samsayatmana. So we have to get rid of this doubts. We have to uproot the doubts. Otherwise, you can't achieve your destination, nor will you be able to achieve any type of happiness. So, when the devotee sent this email, of course, he has doubts, very, very open. And perhaps that's the first thing, when you have doubts, to discuss the doubts. So, we began a conversation, and I quoted this verse to him, so you can repeat after me. Tadasmasaram hridayam batedam Yadgriyamaner harinam adhyayay Navikriyetha tayada vikaro Netre jalam gatra ruhe shuharsha. There are specific chapters in the Bhagavatam which are incredibly important, like Srila Prabhupada quoted from them on numerous occasions. One is perhaps the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto, Divinity and Divine Service. Prabhupada quoted from that chapter again and again. Another chapter that's very important is the 5th chapter of the 5th canto, the teachings of Lord Rishabdev. Another very, very important chapter is from the 7th canto, the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj to his schoolmates. Prabhupada quoted copiously. But another very, very important chapter of the Bhagavatam is the 3rd chapter of the 7th canto, which is entitled Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. This is very, very important. Strategically, this is very, very important because straight after Parikshit asks his question to Sukadev Goswami, one commentator says that Sukadev Goswami was so enthused, he was so inspired, enlivened by Parikshit Maharaj's question, that as soon as Parikshit started asked the question, he just started answering before even doing any Mangalacharan. He was so enthusiastic that if you read the 1st chapter of the 2nd canto, he just launches into speaking many, many points. And in 3 chapters of the 2nd canto, he basically comes to the point of ultimately answering Parikshit's question and ultimately reaching the conclusion. And so this 3rd chapter of the 2nd canto comes to the point that Sukadev wants to bring Parikshit Maharaj to, which is that we all want to experience a change of heart. We all want to experience bhakti and love overflow within our own consciousness. And here Sukadev Goswami is saying, certainly that heart is steel framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change even when one displays such signs of transformation as tears in the eyes and ecstatic standing of the hairs on end. So this is a very, very famous verse. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains very beautifully. The whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being in the matter of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord as subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So with the progress of devotional service, the reaction of change in the heart is exhibited by gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment, by a false sense of lording it over the world, and an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service to the Lord. Vidhi Bhakti, or regulated devotional service by the limbs of the body, namely the eyes, the ears, the nose, the hands and the legs, as already explained herein before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind, which is the impetus for all activities of the limbs of the body. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying the whole spiritual culture of practicing Vidhi Bhakti, or the different angas of regulated devotional service, are so that one can ultimately awaken this natural emotion. Griti sadhya bhavet sadhya, sadhya sa sadhana bida, nitta siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam ridi sadhyata. That sadhana bhakti is characterized by that process which has the potentiality, nitta siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam ridi sadhyata, has the potentiality to awaken bhav. So Prabhupada explains, just one more paragraph. It is expected by all means that by discharging regulated service one must manifest the change of heart. If there is no such change, the heart must be considered steel-framed, for it is not melted even when there is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of discharging devotional duties. And if they are properly performed, there will follow the reaction or ecstasy with the signs of tears in the eyes and the standing of the hairs on the body. These are the natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfectional stage of prema, love of Godhead. So here Srila Prabhupada is explaining how bhava should arise. This is the cherished goal of the devotee. This is the inspiration that keeps them going every single day. Is very, very beautifully explained by Rupa Goswami how bhava comes about. Shuddha Shattva Visheshatma Prema Suryam Susamya Bhak Ruchibis Chitamashrinya Griraso Bhava Uchyate. It's very, very mystical, this bhav, what happens. Rupa Goswami says the essence of bhava bhakti is Shuddha Shattva, that within one's heart the internal potency descends primarily in two features, the Samvit Shakti and the Ladini Shakti. So when one is sufficiently purified and practices devotional service in pure transcendental goodness, the internal potency of the Lord descends within one's heart, first as the Samvit Shakti. The Samvit Shakti basically gives one cognition of the spiritual reality. And therefore it's said that when one experiences bhav, because the Samvit Shakti descends within the heart, one gets a spurti, one gets a vision, one actually gets a direct perception of the Supreme Lord. And then Ladini Shakti descends and one begins to experience and perceive an incredible ecstatic, loving feeling. And then Rupa Goswami goes on in this verse to explain, after such things have happened, or while such things have happened, the effect, ruchibis chitamashrinya, by this taste, by this incredible experience, the heart becomes softened more and more and more. And as the heart becomes softened, then one becomes more and more able and equipped and empowered to experience this spiritual ecstasy. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness is to make one's heart soft. If you imagine there's all this wonderful, stimulus which is being aimed at us. But if our heart is very hard, it's like shooting bullets at a steel sheet. And all that happens is all these powerful bullets of transcendental stimulation are being aimed at us. But because our heart is so hard, it's like a steel sheet which then just deflects it. But as one's heart becomes soft like a pillow, then what happens is when all that transcendental stimulation is aimed, then one absorbs it within oneself and it sits there. And more comes and it sits there. And like this, one becomes more and more enlivened and more completely enchanted by the different tastes of devotional service. So this is where we are trying to go. This is the transformation that we seek. But our friend doesn't feel it's moving in that direction. Doesn't feel like there's much transformation really going on. Hears about all of these things and feels it's wishful thinking. A nice thing to share in a class that can enliven people. But the reality when we go out there in the world is that no one really is getting there. Nothing really is happening. So I don't know how you would respond to such a person. I'll share with you how I responded. And then I'll open it up to see what discussion there could be from you. So when this person felt that in their life there was no transformation, my 3 responses were this. Number 1, there are stages of transformation. This is very, very important to understand. Number 2, there are different aspects and elements of transformation. And this also will give you a key to understand how transformation may be occurring in a way that you're not even aware of. And the third thing I shared with this person is that there are triggers of transformation. And that by studying Bhagavatam and studying the lives of the great devotees, one can learn some of the triggers which cause their transformation, and one can then incorporate those triggers into their life in order to achieve the transformation that we desire. So the first thing I shared with this devotee is that there are stages of transformation. And therefore I told him, be peaceful. Because the transformation that you're looking for doesn't just happen in one go. And perhaps the problem with us is we're looking for a very, very elevated type of transformation, but not appreciating and understanding that there are many types of transformation along that journey that we have experienced, we are experiencing, and will ultimately lead to that transformation, and being happy and appreciative and grateful for those types of transformation. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we know Rupa Goswami tells us, Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango Tha Bhajana Kriya Tata Nivritti Anartha Nivritti Shat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tatha. So he's explaining that first we begin with an inclination to take up spiritual life, then we associate with the devotees, we engage in a regulative practice, there is purification of the heart, there is conviction which arises within the heart. Shraddha Shabde Vishvash Kohe. The Shraddha turns to a Vishvash, a conviction. And then there is attraction, connection, emotion, and intoxication. So, what we were discussing with this devotee was that in the beginning, spiritual life is just very much about an identity. We come to Krishna consciousness, and in the beginning we hear about this process, we hear about this sangha, we hear about this community, we begin to make friendships with others who are on this path, and therefore it leads to somewhat a change of identity. We begin to reorientate our goals in a slightly different way because of the initial inclination and association that we receive. And therefore, even in the beginning, there is already transformation because your goals change. How can anyone say in Krishna consciousness they haven't been transformed? Because very, very quickly, after putting some faith and associating with the devotees, already your goals have changed. Already your desires, your aspirations, what you value in your life has changed. But then, as we go deeper into Krishna consciousness, it's not just about an identity. It's not just about a social belonging to a certain group. But we actually, beyond the identity, we now put more emphasis on the process of Krishna consciousness. And therefore we engage in bhajana kriya, we take vows, we make a daily commitment to Krishna consciousness, and therefore here our actions change. How can one say there's no transformation? Of course there's transformation, because your actions have changed. The way the habits you have, the lifestyle that you lead, the way you do things, the way you speak, the way you go about your daily duties changes. But then later on, beyond the identity, beyond the process, as one goes deeper and deeper into the journey of bhakti, it's not so much about an identity anymore. It's not so much about a process, but it becomes focused on Krishna. And then we want to love Krishna. We want to hear about Krishna. We want to allow Krishna to fully steal our heart. And at this point, our heart is changing. That's the deepest type of transformation. That's the type of transformation we're talking about here in this verse of the Bhagavatam, where the internal potency descends, one's heart becomes very, very soft, and one becomes more and more equipped and empowered to experience all of these emotions. But what I was sharing with this devotee is that there is transformation. How can you say there's not transformation? Sometimes we're so focused on this transformation that we don't understand here you've changed because your intention has changed. Here you've changed because your actions have changed. And later on, your disposition will change. But just because one's disposition hasn't immediately changed, it doesn't mean the process is not working. So one is going. In the beginning, we're a covered devotee. We don't even know. We're covered by Maya. Maya mugda jivera nahi swata Krishna gyan. Completely bewildered by Maya. We have no idea. But then we transform. But when we transform, we get a vision. But we're not necessarily committed. We're just still a little bit casual. But there's still a transformation. And then, by association, by knowledge, we become committed. More transformation. And then eventually, we become confidential. More transformation. So, the Bhagavatam has many stories of people who made these journeys of transformation. For example, those who were completely covered. Mragari the hunter, completely covered. Not just killing animals, but making sure they go through a lot of pain in the process. But then, transformed. There are casual devotees who then become committed. For example, in the 4th canto, Prachina Barishat, he's not atheistic. He's performing Vedic sacrifices, ritualistic activities, but it's casual. He's still very much got his feet rooted in enjoyment in the material world. But then, by the association of Narad Muni and by the beautiful allegorical story of Puranjan, he realizes, no, I should not just casually do all these Vedic regulations for some material enjoyment, but I should become committed to something much higher by which I can escape the entanglement of this world. Transformational stories. And then there are transformational stories of those who discover what confidential devotion is. Can you think of someone in the Bhagavatam who goes on a journey and discovers what confidential devotion really is? Uddhav. Because yes, Uddhav was Brihaspati Shishya, committed to Gyan. But then he went on that journey to Vrindavan and he saw the gopis. He saw Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, Mai. We were just in Nandagram, and it's very beautiful when you go above the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, when you go onto the top, and then you can see all the way out across Braja. It's very, very beautiful. And in the distance you can see Uddhav Kyari, the very, very beautiful place where Uddhav came to give the message to the gopis. So after we left from Nandagram, I was with Krishna Murari Goswami. Of course, Brajabasi, grew up in Nandagram. So when you are around such personalities, you have to think, how can I trigger them? So I just said to him in the car, I said, oh yeah, it's very... Uddhav Kyari, very significant place. That was it. Boom. That was the trigger. And then for 40 minutes I had the joy of hearing Uddhav Leela, Uddhav Sandesh, from the mouth of someone who was for sure relishing. So we have to trigger. We have Hari Parshad Prabhu here, His Holiness Sachinanda Maharaj, so you have to provoke them. You have to trigger and get the nectar. So yes, Uddhav ji, Krishna Murari Goswami says, I think this is the greatest story of transformation from the Bhagavatam. So all these stories. So I was sharing with this devotee, why do you say there's no transformation? Why do you say people haven't changed? Actually look closely. You have changed. Things have significantly shifted. The paradigms have shifted in your life. But yes, there is some distance still to go. So this was the first thing I wanted to share with all of you based on my conversation with him, that as we go on this journey of transformation, never be discouraged, never be depressed, never feel you are hopeless, that you will never make it. Because Asha Bandha, no, the devotee is very, very hopeful. Because although they see, yes, I have so far to go, they look at their life and they see, yes, the process of Krishna consciousness has changed me in many ways. And I am on that journey. The second thing I shared with this devotee is that there are aspects of transformation. Sometimes when we think of transformation, we have a very, very specific idea of what we want to transform. But what happens in the journey of spiritual life is that different aspects of our being are undergoing transformation through sadhana bhakti. So for example, one of the first main things that happens when we take up spiritual life is that our desires transform. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. So what you find rasa, where you find rasa, where you look for rasa, all of these things are changing over time. And any devotee who looks at their life sees that those things I was so much attracted to previously, gradually now uninterested. Maybe not fully overcome, but not so much faith anymore in those desires. So desires change. This is one aspect of transformation. Another aspect of transformation is that character changes. The 5th canto of the Bhagavatam tells us, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana sarvair guneis tatra samasate suraha. That all the good qualities of the demigod should gradually come about within one's character, especially one who is practicing bhakti. Yes, we may not be saintly. We may not have completely turned into swans. We were just in Vrindavan, and there's one Mataji, she wrote a book of remembrances about His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj, and the title of the book is From Crows into Swans, because His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj often quoted that, which Srila Prabhupada often quoted, that this movement turns crows into swans. So yes, we may not be swans, but definitely we can see that some aspect of character has changed. Some good qualities. Even if our character hasn't changed, certain aspects of our character have become very uncomfortable to us now. And therefore when we see that come about, we can't just ignore it anymore. That in itself is a transformation. Our faith changes. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Shraddha Anusari, one is known as a Kanista, a Madhyam, or a Uttam, based on the quality and the depth of their faith. So as one goes on in the journey of spiritual life, their faith should be solidified, their faith should be growing. Commitment. Just look at one's daily activities and where your attention and commitment of consciousness gravitates towards. In the Bhava Bhakti stage then, avyartha kalatvam, one doesn't want to waste one moment of time. One is completely committed to the spiritual energy. One doesn't divert their attention anywhere else. But even if we're not there, we can begin to see where is the commitment of where I spend my time, my energy, my thoughts, my desires. More commitment is definitely there towards the spiritual energy. One's habit, lifestyle, modes, all of these things are changing over time, transforming. Tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobhadayaschaye chetareta ranavidam stitam sattve prasidati. By practice, by hearing, by engaging in the spiritual energy, nature's effects of passion, ignorance, these things are disappearing. Stitam sattve, and one becomes situated in sattva, changing, transforming. And taste. This is also a classic sign of transformation of the heart. How much is one able to remain absorbed in spiritual sound? How much can one remain hearing Hari Katha, hearing Hari Kirtan, without any sense of laziness, distraction, apathy, or satiation? The more that one is able to remain inspired, attentive, thirsty and hungry for hearing about Krishna and chanting about Krishna, then one can understand that one's transformation is going on. And all of these things are ultimately love. How much is one's heart naturally moving towards Krishna? How much is one naturally giving Krishna the first place in their heart? So therefore there are different aspects of transformation, and sometimes we may look at one of these things, like we may look at character, and we may feel, oh, my character hasn't changed, therefore Krishna consciousness is not working. But maybe there are many other aspects in your life that have changed, that are transforming, and everyone will transform in their own individual way. So for some people, some of these aspects will come much easier. And for other individuals, other aspects will come much easier. And sometimes because we have a tendency to compare, we think it's working for others, but it's not working for us. But when we look closely, we should see, where am I transforming? Where can I take hope and take comfort and be inspired? And which aspects do I need to work on? And ultimately, love is the biggest transformation. This is the biggest miracle. This is the biggest thing that we want to achieve. So the second thing I discussed with this devotee is be grateful. First I told him, be peaceful. There are many stages. So just be peaceful. Utsahan nishchaya dhairyat. Then the second thing I said was be grateful. Because if you actually look, there are many aspects. I'm sure when you analyze yourself, looking at this, there are many things which have transformed. So be grateful. In fact, if you look at the amount of transformation that we've achieved in our life, proportionate to how much effort we've put in, then we will actually realize how powerful this process is. Because, for example, if you look at the amount of effort, sacrifice, that people will put into achieving something material. Imagine if they would put even 10% of that amount of effort and sacrifice into what they're trying to achieve spiritually, where they would be. But for us, even a fraction of that effort, if we're honest, we look at our life and we think, what I would sacrifice for material things, I'm not ready to sacrifice that on the spiritual journey. What efforts I've put in for material things, I'm not ready to do that on the spiritual journey. How I'd turn my life upside down for a material opportunity, I'm not ready to do. How much transformation has occurred even with what amount of effort we have put in. So we should be grateful that yes, there are aspects of transformation that have taken place. And then the final thing to him I said was, be hopeful. Because if you look at the Bhagavatam, if you look at the scriptures, if you look at the accounts of the great devotees, then what you will begin to see are many, many triggers which bring about transformation in the life of a devotee. And so if you're wise, you'll read the Bhagavatam, you'll understand the power of these triggers, and then you'll try to incorporate these triggers into your own life in order to experience that transformation. And now in the next 2 days, I thought just to go through 7 accounts of things that cause devotees to undergo incredible transformation. One is the trigger of transformation by instruction. Another one is transformation by increment, transformation by issue, transformation by impossibility, transformation by influence, transformation by intensity, and transformation by intrigue. These are different triggers. These things are all coalescing together to bring about a transformation. But we can see in different accounts, there is something prominent which we can identify as a takeaway that if I incorporate this into my life, then transformation can come about. So we'll be going through some of these stories. Many of you are familiar. In transformation of instruction, by instruction we'll be talking about Narad Muni and the Haryash. Enigmatic words, as the Bhagavatam says, he was able to change the course of their life. We'll be looking at transformation by increment. Different stories. We'll look at Mrugari, the hunter, and how Narad Muni expertly brought him to a higher level of sensitivity. We'll look at transformation by issue, how Chitraketu was experiencing an incredible level of ups and downs in his life, and how those ups and downs through the flowing river, he calls. This world is like a river full of waves of ups and downs. He says we'll see how those issues of ups and downs brought about a transformation. We'll be looking at impossibility. Sometimes you have to realize the futility and impossibility of everything else, and how Krishna expertly does that with Arjuna. And then we'll be talking about transformation by influence, how if we want to trigger transformation in our life, then sometimes it's not just words or situations, but it's the influence of those who are emanating and embodying a very, very powerful type of bhakti. And then we'll talk about transformation by intensity, about those who make special endeavors, about those who take risks, about those who really go out of the comfort zone to find Krishna. And then we'll be talking about how if all else fails, then there can also be transformation by intrigue. And we'll be talking about Vamandev and Bali. My initial response to this devotee who said that I don't think I'm transforming, and I don't really think others around me are transforming. Be peaceful, there are stages. Be grateful, there are aspects. And be hopeful, because there are triggers. And when we see this, and when we absorb and apply and implement this in our life, then we can also experience more and more transformation, because this is what this movement is for. Srila Prabhupada, he was on the stage, and in the Pandal, I can't remember, somewhere in India, and someone asked Srila Prabhupada, what miracle can you perform? And without the blink of an eyelid, Srila Prabhupada pointed to all of his disciples and said, they are my miracle. That was a very beautiful answer, but it's also an answer which carries a lot of responsibility for each one of us. That we are meant to be the living examples. We are meant to be the fruits of what Srila Prabhupada was teaching to the world. Srila Prabhupada wanted a movement of transformed individuals, because perhaps that was his mission. Prabhupada said, if I can make one person a devotee of Krishna, a pure devotee, I'll consider my mission successful. Transformed individuals, that will put a smile on Srila Prabhupada's face. And also for Srila Prabhupada's mission, which is to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world, the greatest advertisement, the greatest strategy, the greatest impetus which will attract the world to Krishna consciousness is when they see a society of transformed individuals, people who are actually experiencing the theology that they're trying to share with the world. And so this is what we'll be discussing in the coming days. And what I just tried to do today was just give a little bit of groundwork to help us understand transformation, how it occurs, how it's a complex thing, and how we should remain peaceful, grateful and hopeful, because transformation does take time, but is very much possible and is very much the mission of Srila Prabhupada and this movement. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So I'll pause here and just kind of open it up and just see perhaps if you have any points of discussion or anything you would like to share. I see hands. I'll just ask first Maharaj or Hari Parshad Prabhu if there's anything you would like to add or correct, or if you would also like, we can go in as you like.
Hare Krishna. First of all, welcome. We greatly appreciate knowing your schedule and you seem to not get tired. A short feedback. It was a wonderful presentation by a professor of spiritual knowledge or spiritual the application of Krishna consciousness. For me, everything boils down of transformation, because I do know on my own it is a little difficult. I'm thinking of the amazing transformation in nature which a caterpillar undergoes in order to become a butterfly. Now, in order to do that, the caterpillar has to know what he takes in. For instance, one type of caterpillar takes only mulberry leaves, the leaves of a mulberry tree. I hope I say it right. Do I say it right? Mulberry or? Mulberry tree. And by the ingredients which he finds in the mulberry tree, he develops silk and then flies. Other need other food, and with that food and that environment, it becomes possible. It's not possible by their own strength. If they wouldn't have this input, they would remain worms until they die. So I really want to congratulate you for your work on it, and you spoke about this also, and we will hear more how we really need to see as individuals where can we find transformation. And I always say during my Japa retreats, not always but sometimes, that I came to give these retreats and speak about the holy name because after 20 or so years I could see that I had not transformed. I could see, I sympathize with this devotee. And if you meet him in the future, tell him he should approach me. Say he's the email devotee. I will recognize him. Because I was in the same situation and I was profoundly aggrieved by it. It was an existential crisis. I better go to another process, another movement, because it has been clear for me I need to change. And at that time I studied Prabhupada's books very thoroughly. Is there something I have overlooked, was my question. And for me, I can only speak personally, there was the holy name. I had overlooked him. Yes, I chanted 16 rounds and all how it spread, holy name traveled and staged programs where I shared the holy name with thousands, but I myself had not become, I had not dared to dive into the ocean of the holy name. And so I tried my best, and I can really now honestly say that something is happening. I can see changes. I mean, real, not in my mind, but I see, whoops, you're so different. So on. But it is a serious work. I think for all of you who have listened to this, I noticed you were intrigued, isn't it? I saw the mobile cameras going up and I hope you will look at this. You will look, I can see from here very nicely your faces without you seeing me. And I noticed, my God, how Maharaj speaks about the things that matter most for me. It is a work. If you think about this, it is a work. It's not just Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, and you finished. You really have to see how this works for you. And I can only say, on our own, I don't think it will work. I was very happy when you spoke about how did you call it, the toxicity which happens by the self-development?
Toxic self-development.
Toxic self-development. I have a lot of contact with these well-intentioned attempts, and I've seen they don't work. They just create some hype, really. Tony Robbins hype and so on. All the time with this life. I've seen hypes. So you need to put something in. You need, and that needs to work on you. You have to study how it works. You have to, like for instance, chanting. It's my dear devotees. It's much more than chant and be happy. You know, there's more information on this subject. But it's a good motto. Yes, I agree with the motto. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you.
And please find some rest. Also, you have come all the way from India.
Yes,
and you don't look like this. You look fresh, like a spring flower.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. You said you wanted to trigger me. I'm triggered. Is there a way we can exchange our seminar? So I feel really triggered because there is a culture of self-help in Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, and I would say the Madhurya Kadambini is the first self-help book that was written for Gaudiya Vaishnava practitioners. Because when we had all these textbook definitions of Uttama Bhakti, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, and the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu did not give these stages of Anishtita Bhajan, struggling bhakti. So that gap was experienced by many devotees, and mercifully Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur filled the gap through Madhurya Kadambini. And still there are a lot of gaps, because every generation has its own different challenges. What I feel personally is that every devotee begins with a very sincere intention of attaining success. Like in the beginning, they all have this goal in life that someday I will attain Krishna. But somewhere the one or more of these agents of transformation do not occur in their lives. And there was a philosopher named Pascal. There is a scientist Pascal and the philosopher Pascal. And the philosopher Pascal, he wrote something known as Pascal's wager. And similar to Pascal's wager says that a person, at one point of time, a person decides whether they want to be a theist or an atheist in life. So they put a wager on they put a bet on one of these positions in life. Similarly, I believe in the life of every devotee there comes a time when they place a wager that the process is working for me or it's not working for me, and they don't tell anyone that they've placed a wager. And what happens after that determines, what result they'll achieve. And as Maharaj was very correctly saying that it cannot, transformation cannot happen on one's own. So unless this distressed devotee meets an unconventional teacher who can revolutionize the life of that particular devotee at the time that the devotee needs it the most, till that time I believe that transformation is very difficult to happen, and that's perhaps the experience that this devotee who wrote the email went through. When he most needed that agent of transformation and a teacher who's not conventional, who doesn't give conventional answers like just chant 16 rounds and follow. But somebody who could have given him those unconventional answers that would have helped him progress. It simply did not manifest in his or her life. So, Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Vishaya Vishta Chittanam Vishnu Vishwa Suduratha Varuni Diggatam Vastu Vrajan Aindrim Kimapnuya. There are some devotees who decide it is not going to work for me. But still, I'll remain a devotee. But the hearts then become absorbed in material life. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says it is difficult to find an object which is lost in the West to find it in the East. So that is what ends up happening with such devotees. So you can see I am triggered. And there's a lot to speak, but am I allowed to steal some with your permission?
Yeah, please correct that. No, very nice. Now I really like your point on this last point, many significant points, but this last point that we all place a wager. And it's very interesting that many devotees have committed to staying in Krishna consciousness and at the same time convinced that they'll never transform. It's very interesting that you can't leave, but at the same time you almost have no faith that you're going to progress. And of course Arjuna says, this is like a riven cloud. So this is very, very painful actually to see. And to maybe a greater or lesser extent, many of us kind of feel that. And the more that we are convinced that we can't move forward, the less and less effort and endeavor we put. So yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Really. Thank you. Yes, Prabhu at the back. Yeah.
You were asking how would we react?
Respond to this email, yes.
And I thought, yes, very nice devotee.
But I would try to answer that we actually don't have to change our external individuality, but use it in the service of the Lord. Some devotee, he might be courageous, a little bit passionate, enthusiastic, and he's using that individual personality in the service of the Lord. And the other devotee, he is silent, meek, humble. I know Buddhist devotees on the street, they were distributing so many books by courageous behavior, and some are very silent, friendly, meek behavior. They have totally different personalities, and they don't have to change that. They use it in the service, and then it loses the poisonous effect, like Prabhupada describes the snake loses its poisonous effect. And the senses are like the snake. We use them in the service of the Lord, and they lose this effect. So I have a lot of experience that devotees, yes, they have their personality when they joined, And after 20 years, the same. But they are using it in the service of the Lord, and internally something has changed. Because the passionate one, maybe he was passionate at the beginning because he wanted to control others, to lord over, to be Ishvara. Now he understands he's the servant. And the other one was meek and humble because he had some internal anxieties. Now he's still meek and humble, but free of that anxiety. I can give you a personal example. Before I joined 82, I was never able to give class or to speak in public. I would become red like a tomato. So, but the anxiety disappeared, and this is by Krishna consciousness. So there is an effect in our internal personality, but externally we are the same.
Yeah, thank you. This is such a nice point, that when we think of transformation, we have an external picture of what we think we're meant to be transforming into. But actually what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness is become the best version of ourselves. Basically, we have a personality, we have a certain set of psychophysical characteristics, and it's just about dedicating that to Krishna and using that for Krishna. And so when we talk about transformation, it's not necessarily about externally changing everything about you, but using all of those external things that you have with the internally purified consciousness to serve Krishna, and in that way to maintain your personality, but at the same time dedicated to Krishna with purity. Thank you so much. Nice point. Yes. Yes, bro.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this mesmerizing, and I can see for myself and everybody in the room, such relevant topic. One thing that came to my mind is in your slide where you're talking about transformation, identity, process, and then Krishna. And I feel when we came to Krishna consciousness, this change of identity and process came very swiftly. Very quickly we changed our association, very quickly we changed the things we do, our diet, and we adopted the process, started chanting and doing everything. So first thing, there was an expectation of this last step, Krishna, also coming, at some time. So as time passes, maybe 10 years, 20 years, we see this part is still not coming as clearly as the first two stages. And here I would also add, so maybe this is, it's a little bit scary for us, because time is also running out, and we are wondering what is happening. And also adding to this is maybe, at least it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was really like just chant your rounds, follow the principles, and you will attain Krishna. So after a while we are like, okay, I'm chanting my rounds, not attentively, but it was, do your duty and results will come. But then we realize, this is maybe not the case. We need to also put some heart into it. And then we are faced with this, kind of like a huge journey or gap, which is completely different. Even maybe this all of this like really stringent approach maybe even hardened our heart a little bit, which made this transformation, making this transformation even a little bit harder, and also this maybe a little bit of disappointment also hardened our heart. So, but now we are faced with the point that our heart needs to become really soft towards Krishna and towards the process and everything. So
I don't know, these are just some of my thoughts for the challenges, and maybe you can...
Yeah, no, you've raised so many points. We were, a couple of years ago, His Holiness Shivaram Maharaj had come to London, and of course we know Shivaram Maharaj at one point he began to write his Krishna in Vrindavan series. Many, many beautiful stories, many, many beautiful insights, and he said that many devotees questioned him, that why are we talking about all of these things, why are we discussing these things? Srila Prabhupada has given Krishna book, and Srila Prabhupada often warned us about going into these kind of realms of discussion. And so Shivaram Maharaj also then, he decided to write this book, Sudha Bhakti Chintamani. And in that book, he wanted to qualify that hearing such things and absorbing one's mind and heart in Krishna's activities in Vrindavan is not just bona fide, but it's very much the fruit of our journey. We want to get there, and that there's a process to get there, but that we must have that facility for devotees to really hear about Krishna. And so now I think we're really, really blessed here in this retreat. We're so blessed to have the association of Vaishnavas who can really help us to hear about Krishna in such deep ways, with such deep realizations, and it's that sustained hearing. Just now we were in Vrindavan, and in the morning we've reached the 10th canto, 54th chapter, where we're hearing about how Rukmini sent her letter to Krishna because she wanted Krishna to kidnap her. And of course we know that the precursor to that was that she had constantly heard about Krishna. So many beautiful things in the palace were being recited about Krishna, and therefore she fell in love with Krishna. And therefore that constant absorption in Hari Katha and hearing about Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, pastimes, hearing about Krishna in Vrindavan, and allowing that to really pervade our heart. This time when I went to Vrindavan, I also felt like I hadn't gone to Barshana and Nandagram for over 20 years. I'd been to Vrindavan, but I had not gone there for over 20 years. So it was such a beautiful experience, and it really brought home even this point that to connect with Vrindavan, to feel, to be in interaction with Vrindavan, to feel the Vrindavan culture, to be in the midst of those who really carry that devotion and that spirit is also such an important part of that Krishna bit, connecting to Krishna. We talked about Uddhav and how Uddhav was always with Krishna. He was with Krishna throughout the journey of his life, but Uddhav still had to come and hear about love from the Brajabasis, witness that love. And so yes, I think as time goes by, we realize that greater and greater absorption in an appropriate way in Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's land, and hearing about Krishna's qualities, all of these things are so important in order to create that change of heart, which is the mature fruit of the journey. So yes, thank you for sharing that. So I think, what time do we end? I just don't want to go over time because...
Maybe you take the last question.
Okay. I don't know if the late Mataji's.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your very nice presentation. My question is, or my observation, is this correct to assume that a devotee who is doubtful, we know doubt is a sign of good intelligence, a devotee who is doubtful but keeps going on and continues the process, he has actually faith that Krishna will ultimately, if he just keeps going on the process of devotional service, ultimately Krishna is merciful to him. And this is already a sign of transformation.
Yeah. So when people ask about doubts, then generally we can say there are three things you can do when you have doubts. First one is discuss them. Discuss them with a Vaishnav, open your heart. Guyam akyati prachiti. The second thing we can do with doubts is we can delay them. We can be with doubts. That's okay. Sometimes we feel when we have a doubt, either we have to eradicate it, or we have to act on it or do something with it. But we can also just delay doubts. And when doubts are there, we can say, I have this doubt, I can't do much with it now. Let me just keep it here and let me just get on with the process. And then oftentimes what happens is in time those doubts disappear automatically. And we don't allow those doubts to kind of impede our journey forward. And the third thing we can do with doubts is we can downplay them. Oftentimes many of the doubts that we have are not significant enough to warrant us to take the foot off the accelerator in Krishna consciousness. Like if you go in the prasadam hall and someone gives you a little bit less prasadam, you're like, I doubt the devotees, like he gave me less prasadam. I don't know about this whole process of Krishna consciousness, because you may have a small doubt in a devotee. So oftentimes what happens is we make a small doubt bigger than it needs to be and impede our process when it doesn't need to. Yes, it's a doubt, yes, it's there, but in the bigger picture of things, it doesn't need to impede your progress. So I think when we have doubts and we discuss, we learn to delay and we learn how to downplay, then those doubts don't become an impediment to our journey. But in fact, those doubts can actually help us to also move forward as well. So the Bhagavad Gita is all about doubts. So Arjun's doubts, and at no point does Krishna chastise him for his doubts, but Krishna just either answers his doubts or empowers him to learn how to deal with those doubts. So yes, I think for the doubting soul here in this verse, who doesn't discuss, who doesn't learn to delay, who doesn't learn to downplay, but who becomes drowned by those doubts, Nayam lokosti naparo nasukam, for that person there's no progression or happiness. But for one who learns to deal with their doubts in an appropriate way, it can still go on and be very positive. Is that okay?
Thank you.
I know there were others who wanted to ask. My apologies, but we'll continue on in the coming days. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj ki
jai.
So Maharaj said before he will be fully available, so you can also ask singular questions. We are very happy that you are here, Maharaj. Thank you for taking the struggle to come according to what was before. So today we will have different change into the schedule. One of the change is connected to time. This night we will actually lose 1 hour because of we are going through summer time. So we decided to lose the time in the night, not during the day, so that you don't lose anything of the festivals. So just maybe in the evening remember to put your watch 1 hour further. Some of you are staying in accommodations outside and you might need some drive to go and come back. We will organize a schedule that will be on the temple door. If some of you have cars and will be happy to take some devotees with you from time to time, please all watch on this door. There will be, you can put your phone number and we can try to assist everyone to get a ride. Otherwise the schedule continue at 11 o'clock with Haripasha Prabhu, a wonderful seminar. And I don't know if you noticed, Prabhuji, there are many more flowers to be strung on the garland. And later on the schedule we have written that we will have holy. You might have seen the altar is very colorful. The weather is not the ideal for doing it, but for the ladies they can do it very nicely. We will be a little bit open to see how the days come. Maybe some sun comes and we can celebrate outside. For sure it will be a gentle version of Holi, don't worry for you set dhotis or saris. It should be all going alright. And then in the evening we will have His Holiness Sachinandana Swami continuing this beautiful kata. I see we have this festival, we are teaming, we have two MCs. There is just one last thing regarding children. Please parents, make sure that you keep an eye on your children when they are not over 10 or 12 years old. Yesterday there were some fights between children and things going that were actually, we were wondering where are the parents. Sometimes one parent can be in the lecture and the other parents take care, but please it's very important you take nicely care. Also during meditative part of the program, please make sure that your children have enough oxygen and enough actually we have a little oxygen problem in this room, but I noticed your lecture was just so enlivening that even without oxygen it was not So here we have the Manchulamani who has the second part of the exercise.
So we want very much to serve you in all possible ways here. So we have created an app which you will have the daily darshans of the deities. So there is an app now hanging on the door, you can scan it so that you will never forget the beautiful day you have here, and then every day the pujaris are